This series begins by introducing a beautiful woman named Hara, who works as a divorce lawyer at a law firm. Hara is known as a skilled lawyer and is nicknamed the goddess of litigation. However, her profession does not make her marriage smooth, as she has previously divorced her ex-husband named Ku Eun-Beom, who also works as a divorce lawyer at his own law firm. One day, a client suddenly comes to Eun-Beom's law firm and causes a huge commotion. The client is very angry because Eun-Beom lost in a previous trial, and the client demands compensation for his failure to handle his case. With no other choice, Eun-Beom is forced to agree to the client's request, sacrificing all his savings to pay the compensation. He even has to ask for the return of money he had previously donated, as he needs to pay both the compensation and a 3 million won alimony to Hara due to being caught cheating. Eventually, this situation leads to the bankruptcy of Eun-Beom's law firm. Meanwhile, Hara, on her way home, is approached by a man named Lee Dong-hyun, who is the manager of a famous actor named Han Do-woon. It turned out, Do-woon wants to hire Hara as his lawyer to handle his divorce case with his wife, Na Soo-yeon. Initially, before their marriage, they had a prenuptial agreement requiring a 5 million won alimony if either was caught cheating. Since his wife cheated, Do-woon asked Hara for help in obtaining this allowance. The next day, Hara's team doubts that she will be able to get the alimony, as Korean marriage laws have never recognized prenuptial agreements like those in other countries. Moreover, there is no clear evidence that Soo-yeon has cheated, as it is based on a rumor of her affair with a young actor during a rural shooting. However, Hara is convinced that Soo-yeon has cheated because after the rumor spread, she suddenly quit the shooting. Not long after, during their discussion, Eun-Beom unexpectedly arrives and interrupts. The CEO had deliberately brought him to the law firm to collaborate with Hara on the case. Seeing this, Hara firmly rejects the idea, not wanting to be involved with someone who betrayed her. She even threatens to quit if the CEO insists on Eun-Beom working with her. That night, the CEO calls Hara to his office for a discussion. At that moment, he tries to persuade Hara to accept Eun-Beom at the law firm, asking her to give him a chance to correct his mistakes. Hearing this, Hara says she will consider it, though in her heart, she remains decided against accepting Eun-Beom at the firm. The next day, Hara meets Do-woon again to discuss his case, where she advises Do-woon not to file for divorce from Soo-yeon because the evidence they have is not strong enough. Instead, Hara suggests that Do-woon should pretend not to want a divorce so that Soo-yeon will file for divorce herself. If that happens, he could claim the alimony. Afterwards, Hara and Do-woon go to meet Soo-yeon to convey their plan. However, Soo-yeon, the lawyer, who realized their strategy, decided to counterattack by presenting a psychiatrist as a witness in court. This is because Do-woon has been proven to suffer from insomnia, causing excessive jealousy delusions, which force Soo-yeon to flee to avoid being harmed by him. At that time, Do-woon confirms that he had visited a psychiatrist, but denies experiencing excessive jealousy delusions. Upon hearing this, Hara is confused by the truth and realizes she has to work even harder to win the case. Meanwhile, Eun-Beom, who has learned about the situation, offers to help Hara. It turned out, he has a strategy to help Hara win the case, but he stipulates that if she wins, she must allow him to work at the law firm. Despite initially refusing, Hara eventually agrees, as she has no other way to win. On the day of the trial, Soo-yeon presents a psychiatrist as a witness. The psychiatrist explains that 2 years ago, Do-woon frequently visited her for consultations because he suffered from severe insomnia caused by his first wife's infidelity. After the divorce, Do-woon became very busy and rarely attended consultations, worsening his insomnia to the point where it could no longer be treated. Consequently, Do-woon experiences jealousy delusions with his new partner. After hearing the plaintiff's statement, Hara and Do-woon remain silent, unable to refute it. When Soo-yeon's side finished their explanation, Hara suddenly asked how long Soo-yeon had known about the insomnia that Do-woon was suffering from. Soo-yeon then replies that she found out 4 months after they met. Hearing this, Hara then concludes that Soo-yeon knew about Do-woon's condition but still chose to marry him, only to seek divorce later because of his illness. This statement leaves Soo-yeon speechless, leading the judge to dismiss her petition. Because of this, Hara wins the trial. After the trial, Do-woon is disappointed that Hara couldn't prove Soo-yeon's infidelity. He is also unhappy about being accused of having unreasonable jealousy delusions, as he has never felt that way. Before leaving, Do-woon tells Hara that he will find evidence of Soo-yeon's infidelity on his own. Shortly after, Do-woon learns that the person Soo-yeon cheated with is his own manager, which shocks and deeply distresses him. In a fit of rage, Do-woon then drives his car with the intention of hitting Soo-yeon, who is standing in front of him. However, as he gets closer, Do-woon stops the car, realizing that doing so would only create more problems for him. Seeing this, Hara approaches Do-woon and explains that the best revenge is to be happy after breaking free from those who have destroyed them. Despite her words, Hara herself does not yet know how to find happiness after being betrayed by the man she dated for 10 years. Back at the office, Hara is greeted with a surprise celebration from her friends for winning the court case, which marks their biggest victory to date. A few days later, Do-woon is interviewed about his decision to enter the Hollywood film industry, where the film he will star in is titled The Perfect Revenge. Do-woon then reveals that the film's title was inspired by someone's words that the best revenge is to be happier. Meanwhile, Hara, upon realizing this, understood that she needed to find happiness like Do-woon. So, she decided to accept Eun-Beom's invitation to dinner to celebrate their victory. Now, Hara sees Eun-Beom as a colleague, not her ex-husband. That evening, Eun-Beom takes Hara to a romantic restaurant he had booked in advance, which surprises her. It turns out that Eun-Beom planned to set Hara up with his friend Jae-geum and had arranged a blind date for them. Despite feeling annoyed, Hara has no choice but to go along with the blind date. The next day, Hara tells her colleague Baekwi about the previous night's events, where she explains that Jae-geum is a consultant working at a foreign-affiliated company. Although Hara is upset about the unsanctioned blind date, Baekwi supports Eun-Beom's actions, believing that Jae-geum is handsome and a good match for her. One day, a woman named Sung-eun comes to the law firm to consult about her impending divorce. Eun-Beom, upon seeing her, immediately invites her to his office for a consultation, even though Sung-eun is Hara's friend and client. Later in the meeting room, Eun-Beom explains that he did not steal Sung-eun from Hara, but he only wanted to help because Hara seemed very busy at the time. Not wanting to prolong the issue, Hara decides to proceed with discussing Sung-eun's case. It turned out, the divorce is due to Sung-eun's husband refusing to be intimate with her, a situation that has persisted for 4 years. Initially, Sung-eun thought she was no longer attractive. However, even after making efforts to beautify herself, her husband pretended to fall asleep, leaving her feeling very sad and suspecting her husband of having sexual dysfunction, especially since their relationship was fine at the beginning of their marriage. In this case, Hara's team is hesitant to suggest that Sung-eun's husband might be cheating because he refuses to divorce. Additionally, there are rumors that her husband has sexual dysfunction, making this divorce case particularly complicated. Hearing this, Eun-Beom suspects that Sung-eun's husband might be having an affair. It is possible that he is frequently engaging in sexual activity outside the marriage, leaving him uninterested when with Sung-eun. After the meeting, Hara goes for lunch with her colleague. During lunch, Hara receives a message from Jae-geum and feels uncomfortable because he keeps asking to meet, even though he is a good friend of her ex-husband. Hearing this, Baekwi suggests that Hara should try dating and even be intimate with Jae-geum as a way to embarrass Eun-Beom by claiming that Jae-geum is better. According to Baekwi, men are very sensitive about their sexual prowess. The next day, Sung-eun and her husband finally meet, where her husband, Moo-jin, continues to refuse the divorce and denies all of Sung-eun's accusations. He even claims that he doesn't want to be intimate because he is too tired from work and just wants to rest. Hearing this, his lawyer adds that Korea is the #1 country for sexless marriages. Hearing this, Hara immediately retorts that such a situation is not normal. She argues that couples cannot be forced to refrain from having intimate moment just because of national statistics. The opposing lawyer, unable to accept this, mocks Hara by asking how many times a week she needs to be intimate. This makes Hara very angry as she feels the lawyer is belittling her. After the meeting, Hara goes to a restaurant to have dinner with Jae-geum. Remembering Baekwi's advice, she proposes to him that they should be intimate together. However, Jae-geum immediately rejects the idea, feeling that Hara has an ulterior motive because she did not seem to like him during their first meeting. Hearing this, Hara realized that Jae-geum was truly a good man who would not be intimate with a woman unless she loved him, even if he liked her very much. Sometime later, the day of the trial arrived. Hara felt that the refusal to be intimate was not a sufficient reason for divorce. So she decided to take more extreme action by asking the court to order Mu-jin to undergo a urological examination to assess his sexual health. The plaintiff is confident that Mu-jin suffers from sexual dysfunction, and the judge approves the request. On the other hand, Sung-eun is very pleased that the court approved the examination. However, Hara feels anxious because Mu-jin's sexual issues are still just allegations. If the test results show that Mu-jin is normal, Sung-eun will lose the case. Meanwhile, Eun-Beom, wanting to help Hara, decides to meet with Mu-jin. It turned out, he has his own strategy to ensure Hara wins in court. At that moment, he tries to persuade Mu-jin to refuse the urological test, arguing that it will only embarrass him in front of many people if the results are indeed positive. Eun-Beom then suggests that Mu-jin should quickly settle and agree to the divorce with Sung-eun. On the other hand, Hara, while walking with Jae-geum, starts to feel attracted to him because she finds him very easy to talk to. However, Hara still does not want to rush into making any decisions about her feelings. The next day, Eun-Beom receives a call from Mu-jin's lawyer and invites Hara to go with him to meet the lawyer. During the journey, Eun-Beom tells Hara that he met with Mu-jin the day before to persuade him not to undergo the urological test, and it seems that the persuasion worked. As they stop at a red light, Hara suddenly sees a woman named So-hee, who was Eun-Beom's mistress. This sight makes Hara sad as she recalls the past when Eun-Beom betrayed her. Upon arrival, Hara and Eun-Beom receive bad news from Mu-jin's side. Apparently, the reason Mu-jin's lawyer called them was to present evidence that Sung-eun had an affair with a student. When questioned, Sung-eun admits that she cheated because she felt very lonely since Mu-jin ignored her. Seeing Sung-eun crying, Eun-Beom tries to comfort her by saying that if she can handle the shame from others about her actions, then it is okay for her to decide to divorce. Hearing this, Hara becomes very angry because Eun-Beom indirectly supported Sung-eun's infidelity, even though Eun-Beom himself is a divorce lawyer. After that, Eun-Beom watches Hara leave in silence. On the way home, Hara accidentally meets Mu-jin and invites him to talk. At that moment, Hara tells Mu-jin that she understands his position because she too has been cheated on by her partner. She also advises Mu-jin not to hold on to someone who has betrayed him. However, Mu-jin still refuses to divorce Sung-eun because he loves her very much. Hara is confused and asks how Mu-jin can love Sung-eun when he constantly ignores her and refuses to be intimate with her. Reluctantly, Mu-jin explains that he actually suffers from sexual dysfunction caused by the hair growth vitamins he is taking. It turned out, Mu-jin takes these vitamins to maintain his appearance in front of Sung-eun because he feels stressed knowing that she earns much more than he does. Hearing this, Hara suggests that Mu-jin tells Sung-eun about his condition, but he refuses out of embarrassment. The next day, Mu-jin's lawyer informs Hara's team that his client no longer wants to meet anyone because he has decided to fulfill Sung-eun's wish to divorce. However, before leaving, Mu-jin's lawyer mocks Hara by asking whether sexual life is very important for women today. Hearing this, Hara becomes very angry and is about to hit the lawyer, but Eun-Beom stops her and asks her to remain calm. Eun-Beom then tells the lawyer that their conversation was recorded and that it could be used as evidence to sue him for harassment. That night, Hara was seen drinking with Jae-geum at a bar, lost in her thoughts, wondering why Eun-Beom always protected her if he ultimately chose to cheat. Her reverie is abruptly interrupted when she sees Eun-Beom enter the bar with So-hee. This sight makes Hara furious, so she decides to confront them and begins provoking So-hee by calling her a woman with strange tastes. However, So-hee remains unprovoked and even suggests that Hara might be interested in her tastes, which only enrages her further. This lasted until the night, causing Hara to be unable to sleep as she wondered why Eun-Beom and So-hee dared to appear before her again. The next day, Hara waits for Eun-Beom in his office. When he arrives, she immediately asks him how long he and So-hee have been meeting again. Eun-Beom explains that their current meeting is not to rekindle their relationship, but to collaborate professionally. Apparently, So-hee is fighting for custody of her daughter from her ex-husband and has asked Eun-Beom to represent her. Hara doesn't believe him and tells Eun-Beom to cancel his contract with So-hee. However, Eun-Beom refuses because he has already been paid and still owes a debt of gratitude to So-hee. Frustrated with Eun-Beom's response, Hara decides to investigate So-hee's ex-husband. After gathering information, Hara meets So-hee's ex-husband, Jun-kyung, and agrees to represent him. Initially, the head of the firm, Hong, disallows them from taking the case because it's inappropriate for lawyers from the same firm to represent both sides. However, since Hara has signed the contract and Eun-Beom has already received the down payment, they were forced to face each other in court. Not long after, the day of the trial arrives. The session opens with Eun-Beom's statement that he disagrees with his client's 7-year-old daughter being taken to America by her father. At that moment, he argues that the child's emotions are still unstable and she would be better off being cared for by her mother in Korea. However, Hara counters by stating that So-hee abandoned her family when the child was 5 years old, so it's unreasonable for her to claim concern now. After that, Eun-Beom and Hara passionately present their arguments, escalating tensions between both sides. Eventually, the judge intervenes, feeling that the issue seems like a personal matter between the lawyers. That night, Eun-Beom and Jae-geum were seen drinking together at a bar. There, Jae-geum asked why Eun-Beom cheated on Hara, even though he had previously said that Hara was a very perfect woman. Jae-geum then shared that he was currently arguing with Hara, an argument that started when Hara saw Eun-Beom with So-hee at the bar. After that, Hara felt very burdened and kept thinking about it. However, Jae-geum didn't understand her feelings and instead asked her to kiss him before they parted, even with a little force. This made Hara even more upset because Jae-geum was acting childish. Since then, Hara had never answered his calls again. Seeing this reality, Jae-geum felt very confused because he loved her very much, but on the other hand, he also knew that Hara couldn't let go of Eun-Beom. Elsewhere, Hara, who is gathering at her mother's house, suddenly receives a call from Jun-kyung, informing her that his daughter does not want to meet with So-hee during the upcoming visit. Hearing this, Hara plans to file an appeal on the grounds that the child refuses to meet her mother. After finishing the call with Jun-kyung, Hara accidentally finds a photo of herself and Eun-Beom from their college days. This brings back memories of the good times she had with him, and she realizes that she still hasn't been able to forget him. When she returns to her apartment, Hara finds Jae-geum waiting for her at the entrance. Reluctantly, Hara invites him inside. At that moment, Jae-geum apologizes for his childish behavior the previous day, and he admits that he was more concerned with his own desires than her feelings. Jae-geum then asks why Hara has been ignoring all his calls. Hearing this, Hara explains that her feelings are very complicated right now and admits that she still hasn't been able to forget Eun-Beom. Understanding her situation, Jae-geum agrees to wait until she can move on from Eun-Beom. The next day, Eun-Beom accompanies So-hee to visit her daughter. It turned out, she is worried because Jun-kyung has informed her that their daughter, Da-wol, refuses to meet with her. At that moment, Eun-Beom tries to reassure So-hee by saying that Jun-kyung is probably lying. Unfortunately, that is proven wrong when Da-wol remains silent and unrecognizing during the supervised visit. On the way home, So-hee suspects that Jun-kyung has brainwashed Da-wol to hate her. However, Eun-Beom thinks it's understandable since she hasn't seen Da-wol for the past 2 years. To win the case, Eun-Beom plans to submit the evidence they have to the court. Meanwhile, Baekwi has searched Eun-Beom's office and handed over an important document to Hara. The document contains evidence that Jun-kyung committed domestic violence against So-hee. This is also confirmed by Jun-kyung himself. After that, Hara is confused, because submitting this evidence to court would result in Jun-kyung losing custody, since the law and judge would not grant custody to a perpetrator of domestic violence. After thinking for a while, Hara decides to meet Eun-Beom to discuss something. However, upon arrival, she sees Eun-Beom with So-hee, which makes her very jealous, and she chooses to leave. Sometime later, the second court hearing begins, where Eun-Beom's side submits the evidence of domestic violence to the judge. However, Hara, not wanting to lose, submits additional evidence of chat logs showing the affair between Eun-Beom and So-hee. Additionally, Hara also explains that the real reason So-hee left her family was not domestic violence, but because she was having an affair. Hearing this, a panicked Eun-Beom tells the judge that this is not true, and that he had asked So-hee to pretend to have an affair with him so he could divorce Hara. Shocked and in disbelieving, Hara directly questions So-hee, but she only tells Hara to ask Eun-Beom directly. At that moment, seeing that the trial is no longer orderly, the judge decides to end the session. Afterward, outside the courthouse, Hara again pressures So-hee to explain what really happened. However, due to lack of time, So-hee gives her number to Hara so they can discuss it later. Unfortunately, So-hee gives a fake number, forcing Eun-Beom to explain everything to Hara. Later, while in the car, Eun-Beom tells Hara that the reason he wanted a divorce was because their married life was no longer compatible. Unfortunately, Hara finds this reason illogical since they had been married for 7 years. She then asks Eun-Beom to provide a more acceptable reason. However, Eun-Beom maintains his explanation, stating that he felt exhausted by their marriage. Initially, their marriage was smooth and happy until he realized that Hara was too controlling in everything. The breaking point was when Hara suddenly expressed a strong desire to have a child, even though he was not ready for that. According to Eun-Beom, having a child would only complicate his life further, which led to his decision to divorce Hara. Meanwhile, Hara, reflecting on this, begins to feel that their marital failure was largely her fault. She even appears to deeply regret her decision to get married. However, Hong tries to reassure Hara, saying that no one makes the best decisions all the time. Everyone makes choices and sometimes regrets them later. Not long after, the weekend arrives and he was seen spends time with Daewoo, taking her to a recreational place. On their way back, Daewoo suddenly says she wants to stay with her mother and not go to America. At the same time, Hara meets Jun-kyung after hearing that he plans to take Daewoo to America. Hara then explains that he could be sued for taking a minor, which would give an advantage to the plaintiff. Hearing this, Jun-kyung seems indifferent because he just wants to live with Daewoo in America. After the meeting, Hara recounts the situation to Jae-geum, where she feels sorry for So-hee because she was abused by her husband, which made her flee and leave her daughter behind. However, Jae-geum thinks that So-hee should have resolved the issue back then instead of disappearing for 2 years, which seems like abandoning her child. This is different from Jun-kyung, who chose to quit being a baseball player to take care of Daewoo. That night, Jun-kyung and his daughter are preparing to leave for America. At the airport, Daewoo suddenly says she needs to use the restroom. Unbeknownst to Jun-kyung, Daewoo decides to leave the airport and ends up in an accident. At the same time, Hara rushes to the hospital after receiving the news from Eun-Beom. Upon arrival, she is met with harsh words from him, who blames her for everything because she kept Jun-kyung's departure a secret from him. However, Hara immediately responds that she had already tried to prevent Jun-kyung from doing it. Unfortunately, Jun-kyung didn't listen to her and insisted on his decision. Shortly after, he arrives and asks Eun-Beom not to blame Hara, admitting that it was her fault for leaving Daewoo for 2 years. Following this incident, Jun-kyung and So-hee decide to make peace and agree not to fight for custody of Daewoo anymore. They choose to co-parent Daewoo together, even though they can't reconcile their relationship. After the meeting, Eun-Beom meets Hara to apologize for hurting her, and she also forgives him. Before leaving, Hara tells Eun-Beom that he doesn't need to pay her the divorce alimony anymore because she no longer wants it. A few days later, Eun-Beom goes to the hospital to visit Daewoo, who has regained consciousness. While talking to Eun-Beom, he suddenly asks him to be Daewoo's father, which shocks him. Meanwhile, Jae-geum, who is officially dating Hara, invites her to his house. However, just after Hara finishes showering, an older woman unexpectedly arrives at his house, causing Hara's towel to fall off. The woman turns out to be Jae-geum's mother, who has returned from abroad to surprise her son. Feeling guilty towards Hara, Jae-geum's mother invites her to dinner as an apology. Meanwhile, Eun-Beom is invited on a date by So-hee but decides to think about it first, as he only sees her as a client. Despite this, So-hee continues to persuade Eun-Beom, believing he could be a good stepfather to Daewoo. On the other hand, Hara goes to a restaurant to attend the dinner invitation from Jae-geum's mother. At that moment, she immediately apologizes for making Hara uncomfortable. But Hara responds that she should be the one apologizing for causing her to stay in a hotel that night. While smiling, Jae-geum's mother then reassures her that it was no problem at all. Shortly after, when Jae-geum's mother asks about Hara's job, she discovers that Hara is a divorcee. However, she says it doesn't matter as long as they can understand each other, adding that people who have been divorced often have valuable experiences and greater maturity. Elsewhere, Eun-Beom, who is cleaning his house, is suddenly invited by So-hee's family to lunch as a gratitude for helping her recently. At that moment, So-hee's parents are very happy to see how close Eun-Beom is with Daewoo. The next day, Jae-geum's mother unexpectedly visits Hara to discuss something. She also brings a gift and expresses her concern that Jae-geum's immaturity might cause their relationship to falter. So she asks Hara to continue guiding her son. However, Jae-geum's mother's concern makes Hara uncomfortable, especially since she and Jae-geum have just started dating and haven't decided to take their relationship to a more serious level. That night, Jae-geum and Hara have dinner together at a restaurant, where Jae-geum tells Hara that his mother wants to invite her on a vacation to celebrate her birthday, and he asks her to take a few days off that month. Feeling uncomfortable, Hara declines the invitation, expressing her discomfort with how often Jae-geum involves his mother in their relationship. She even mentions that Eun-Beom rarely introduced her to his mother when they were dating, which offends Jae-geum. One day, Eun-Beom picks up his mother for a hospital checkup. While at the hospital, Eun-Beom accidentally meets Hara's father in an elevator. Because of this, he decided to invite Eun-Beom to meet. At the cafe, Hara's father, Dae-hwan, revealed that he never liked Eun-Beom. He also disapproved of Eun-Beom marrying Hara because his parents were divorced, and he feared Eun-Beom would follow the same path. However, the real reason Dae-hwan wanted to meet was to ask Eun-Beom to keep a secret about his daughter, who was the result of his affair with another woman. Apparently, neither Hara nor his wife knows about this. Meanwhile, at the office, a rumor circulates about a romance between colleagues. However, the employees don't know that the couple is Baekwi and Si-wook. At that moment, Si-wook even suggested they reveal their relationship to everyone, but Baekwi refuses, saying she prefers to keep their relationship as friends with benefits. One day, Hara was visited by a female client who wanted to consult with her. The client's problem began when she secretly married a married man, and from that marriage, she had a child who is now in middle school. Currently, the woman wants to divorce her husband and obtain a large amount of alimony. Apparently, she decided to take this step after feeling deceived because her husband had promised for the past 10 years that he would divorce his first wife and register their child in the family records. However, now her husband wants her to leave and forbids her from contacting him again. Hearing this, Hara tells her that it will be difficult to obtain child support because their marriage is not legally recognized. Therefore, she advises the client to seek acknowledgement of the marriage to secure child support. Eun-Beom, aware of this, becomes worried because the case is very similar to what Hara's father experienced. Eun-Beom then contacts Hara's father to inquire about the characteristics of his mistress. Based on the descriptions given, he becomes convinced that Hara's client is her father's mistress. The next day, Hara's client, Ga-eun, returns to the law firm to discuss an urgent matter with Hara. At that moment, she explains that she had confronted her husband, demanding acknowledgement, but he threatened to leave her and their child. Eun-Beom, curious about the case, invites Hara to lunch to discuss her client's issues. However, Hara receives a call from Ga-eun, who informs her that she is at the police station for stabbing a man. Panicking, Eun-Beom grabs Hara's phone and accidentally mentions the name Dae-hwan, which shocking Hara. However, the man turned out not to be her father but Ga-eun's husband, Kim. Puzzled by Eun-Beom's reaction, Hara then asks why he mentioned her father's name. Feeling cornered, Eun-Beom finally reveals that Hara's father has been having an affair. After lunch with Eun-Beom, Hara plans to meet her father at Shan University. Meanwhile, Eun-Beom heads to the police station to assist Ga-eun. Upon arrival, Hara angrily confronts her father and tells him she will handle her mother's divorce case. Not long after, Eun-Beom informs Ga-eun that Hara can no longer be her lawyer due to personal issues. He then offers to take over her case, boasting a 100% success rate, knowing Ga-eun urgently needs legal representation. Still upset, Hara suggested that her mother move out immediately. However, her mother refused, saying that a divorce would mean letting her husband live happily with his mistress. This disappointed Hara, and she decided to leave her mother. After that, feeling stressed, Hara told Eun-Beom about her parents' case. She then continued to drink until she became very drunk. The next day, Hara receives a message from her mother saying that she has agreed to the divorce, which makes her very happy. After that, she immediately goes to her father to discuss the divorce. Hearing this, her father, who does not want a divorce, begs Hara to cancel the divorce. Unfortunately, Hara immediately returns to her mother's house to give her the divorce papers to sign. Upon arriving, her mother seemed hesitant because she actually didn't want to get divorced. At the same time, when she saw her husband looking sad, Hara's mother decided to forgive him, which made Hara feel very disappointed. However, Hara couldn't go against her mother's decision. Shortly after, Rora, Gaun's daughter, suddenly arrived, where she said that she wanted to live with her father because she was in conflict with her mother and asked him to take care of her. Seeing this, Hara's mother was shocked, while Hara, feeling angry, immediately took Rora aside to talk. At that moment, they were seen arguing because Hara insisted that Rora could not stay at her parents' house. However, their argument suddenly stopped when Hara saw her mother leaving the house with a suitcase. That night, feeling sad, Hara calls Eun-Beom and says she wants to die because she is tired of dealing with her family problems. Hearing this, Eun-Beom panics and rushes to meet her, who is half drunk. At that moment, Hara immediately explains that her family is falling apart and she feels her life is miserable and meaningless. Seeing Hara heavily intoxicated, Eun-Beom decides to take her home. But Hara refuses and prefers to sleep on the street, forcing Eun-Beom to take her to a nearby hotel. The next morning, Hara woke up and found Eun-Beom beside her, which made her very surprised. She then asked if Eun-Beom felt anything while sleeping next to her, but Eun-Beom replied that he was already used to it and didn't feel anything. That evening, Hara and Baekwi have dinner together at a cafe, where Hara confides in Baekwi about her feelings. It turned out, since the incident at the hotel, Hara feels that she is falling in love with Eun-Beom again and wants to ask him out. However, she is afraid of rejection. Hearing this, Baekwi then advises Hara to try anyway. If she is rejected even after expressing her feelings 10 times, then it is enough to move on from Eun-Beom. After leaving the cafe, Hara goes to Eun-Beom's office and confesses her feelings to him, but Eun-Beom remains silent without responding. Seeing this, Hara does not give up because she still has more chances to express her feelings. After a court session, Eun-Beom returns to his office to work on a business case. To his surprise, Hara is there, repeatedly confessing her love for him. This is the 5th time she has expressed her feelings, but Eun-Beom rejects her again, thinking she is not serious. Unable to endure it any longer, Eun-Beom then takes Hara aside for a private conversation. Finally, he then asks why Hara has been bothering him so much lately, but she explains that she intends to confess her love 10 times, and if Eun-Beom still rejects her, she will be able to move on from him. Eun-Beom responds that what Hara is doing is an obsession and asks her to remember the moments of their divorce if she truly wants to forget him. However, Hara insists that she still loves him because she knows their divorce wasn't due to infidelity. Meanwhile, Hara's parents' relationship has completely ended, but her mother still refuses to claim any rights from her husband. Daehwan, who has come to terms with the situation, asks Hara if he can still see her, considering her the daughter he cherishes most. Hara agrees, only if he doesn't contact her too often. On the way home, Eun-Beom receives a message from Hara asking about the judge's final decision and, for the last time, declaring her love for him. Eun-Beom then explains the court's decision and says he accepts Hara's love. After that, they decide to have dinner together at a restaurant. However, upon arrival, Eun-Beom sees his co-worker on a blind date and panics, asking Hara to move to another place. Realizing this, Hara also agrees and takes Eun-Beom to have dinner at her place. Upon arriving, Hara asks why Eun-Beom decided to reconcile with her after rejecting her 9 times. Eun-Beom then admits that he still loves Hara and always worries when he sees her sad. As they are about to kiss, Baekwi interrupts to inform Hara that she is pregnant and asks Hara to accompany her to the obstetrician the next day. The next day, Hara accompanies Baekwi to the hospital for a checkup. Shortly after, she is confirmed to be pregnant but decides to keep it a secret from Si-wook and doesn't tell Hara that Si-wook is the father. The following day, Hara visits her mother and asks her opinion about someone who doesn't want to have children. Her mother replies that such a person is selfish and unwilling to take responsibility, advising Hara to stay away from men who don't want children. That night, Hara was restless, constantly thinking about her mother's words. Additionally, she knew that her desire was completely opposite to Eun-Beom's, as she really wanted to have children, but different from Eun-Beom. Seeing Hara lost in her thoughts, Eun-Beom held her hand and kissed her. They then went to her house and spent the night together. The next day, Hara is seen having dinner with her co-workers at the office. Baekwi, who is eating, suddenly feels nauseous and runs to the toilet. Worried, Si-wook follows her to check on her, but she asks him not to worry about her. Still curious about Baekwi's condition, Si-wook then goes to her office and finds a piece of paper with the results from the obstetrician. Intrigued about her pregnancy, Si-wook then directly asks her. Initially, Baekwi refuses to explain, but after Si-wook insists, she finally admits that the child she is carrying is his. Overjoyed, Si-wook promises to marry her. Meanwhile, Hara is having dinner with Eun-Beom and looks very anxious, constantly thinking about their differing views. Sensing her thoughts, Eun-Beom asks if she would be happy if they had a child. Before Hara can answer, Eun-Beom's mother unexpectedly arrives. Later, while Eun-Beom is about to meet Hara in her office, he overhears her conversation with her mother. At that moment, Hara says she will not give up and will continue to persuade him. Misunderstanding the context, Eun-Beom feels disappointed, thinking Hara is discussing him and not understanding his trauma. In reality, Hara is talking about her family with her mother. That night, the employees are celebrating the CEO's victory at a restaurant. After dinner, Hara notices that Eun-Beom is missing and tries to call him. Eventually, she finds out that Eun-Beom has already gone home without informing her. When asked about the reason, Eun-Beom gives a short and cold response, making Hara very upset, and she hangs up the phone abruptly. When Hara is about to enter her house, Eun-Beom suddenly arrives and asks her to talk. He then tells Hara that he wants to end their relationship that very night, where he explains that he feels Hara cannot accept his decision not to have children. Additionally, Hara's mother has been pressuring him to break up with her, although this is a misunderstanding of the conversation Hara had with her mother earlier. Shocked by Eun-Beom's confession, Hara remains silent and does not respond. The next day, the CEO informs his colleagues that they went to court regarding his wife's case. He then asks Hara and Baekwi to assist him in handling it. At that moment, Si-wook also requests the CEO not to push Baekwi too hard because she is pregnant with his child, and they are planning to get married soon. Everyone is surprised to hear this, but Hara feels sad that Baekwi did not tell her that Si-wook is the father. When Hara returns to her office, Baekwi apologizes for not informing her earlier. Baekwi explains that she initially did not plan to marry Si-wook and intended to terminate the pregnancy. However, due to Si-wook's care and attention, she decided to accept his proposal. That night, Eun-Beom suddenly calls Hara to check on her. But Hara only tells him not to worry about her anymore because every time he is kind to her, it makes it harder for her to move on. She realizes that their on and off relationship is a sign that they are not meant to be together. After a meeting, Eun-Beom meets with the CEO to announce his decision to resign from the law firm. He also explains that his primary reason for working there was Hara, but since she has rejected him, he chooses to leave. Hearing this, the CEO, who knows that it was actually Eun-Beom who broke up with Hara, advises him not to play with people's hearts as it only causes pain to those close to him. Meanwhile, Hara had promised to spend the evening with her mother and arrives at the restaurant her mother reserved. To her surprise, she is greeted by a man she doesn't know. It turns out he is the man her mother has chosen for her to date that night. Realizing this, Hara leaves angrily, feeling that her mother is overstepping by trying to control her life. Her mother immediately explains that Hara needs to be with someone other than Eun-Beom because she dislikes men like him who do not want children. Her mother also admits that she was the one who asked Eun-Beom to break up with Hara. Disappointed by her mother's confession, Hara immediately leaves. The next day, Hara goes to Eun-Beom's office to confirm what her mother said. There, he explains that their breakup wasn't due to her mother but because Hara herself had asked to break up with him. Hearing this, Hara feels very confused because she never intended to break up with Eun-Beom. After that, Hara has lunch with the CEO at a cafe, where he suggests that it's the perfect time for Hara to advance her career and look for a bigger company. The following day, after hearing about Hara's plan to leave, Eun-Beom asks why she wants to leave the company. Hara then tells him that she received a better job offer elsewhere, but Eun-Beom tries to persuade her to stay at the firm, as he has also decided not to quit his job. Unfortunately, Hara declines, explaining that she wants to explore a broader world and meet new people so that her heart doesn't always focus on Eun-Beom. Hearing this, Eun-Beom looks slightly disappointed by her decision, so he invites Hara to have a meal together, but Hara declines because she has plans with her mother. Sometime later, the day of Bi and Si-wook's wedding arrives. At that moment, everyone is very happy as they officially become husband and wife. During the celebration, Hara says goodbye to everyone because she has to leave to attend to her business. Seeing this, Eun-Beom immediately approaches Hara and accompanies her downstairs. At that moment, Hara then tells him that today is her last day at work, meaning they will soon part ways. Before leaving, Hara and Eun-Beom say their goodbyes and hope to meet again sometime in the future. Moral lesson from the story: sometimes, it's better to just record people being jerks rather than hitting them. Also, never try to make someone jealous at a bar. It usually just ends in awkwardness and a broken relationship.